This is Meg Herman. Got 11:59, so we're going to wait another minute, but just let you know that if you're here for the WBDC webinar, getting ready for the next employee, you're in the right place, and we'll start in just a minute. Okay, let's get started. It is high noon, and my name is Meg Herman. I am your facilitator for today's webinar that focuses on growth wheels tools. And in this particular webinar, I'll be asking you a series of questions throughout, so stay checked in and learn about getting ready for your next webinar, getting ready for your next employee. So we're going to describe today how you can build a relevant job description and create an employee profile to describe the attributes of the right person to fill the job. So in order to hire the right employees, you need a clear image of what the job actually is before you can hire somebody for it. So we're going to learn how to create the best job description and list all the expectations before hiring. You're going to have a tool that will help you do that. And taking the time then after that to determine the ideal profile of the next employee enhances your chance of getting the right person for the job. So as you join the webinar, you will be sent the following growth wheel tools: the job description and the employee profile. You'll also be sent the articles Creating Meaningful Jobs and The Next Employee. It is from these two articles I've created most of my comments. And so most of what I say will be also reflected in the article. So then after the webinar will be stored on our website for your review. However, the tools in the articles will only be available to you lucky people who are on the webinar. So, what you'll get after is opportunities to ask questions and talk with me at the end of this webinar, to provide feedback on the webinar, and to set up an appointment to work with a business advisor. So now let me ask you some questions. Okay, so let's have poll question number 1. So we're asking you to tell us where you're from. So your choices are Chicago and suburbs, other parts of Illinois, other Midwest state, other parts of the USA, beyond the USA. Some of you have voted, some of you have not. Now all of you have voted. Oh, so you're all local. That's great. So now let's show you that poll, that everybody's from Chicago. Now let's look at the second poll. Okay. So have you gone to our, okay, we got an no. Another person needs to vote. And let's see, take your time to vote. Okay, so know that I do that introductory webinar that explains about the growth wheel tool once a month. So if you haven't taken it, please do. So let's show the results. Okay. So, so those of you who have not taken it know that the next one's coming up in early May. And we invite you to take that so you can learn more about the growth wheel tools in general and how they work. Okay, so what is growth wheel? What am I talking about here? Growth wheel is a set of tools for you, a business owner, to work through your issues of working on the business. You can do this you can use them on your own or with a business advisor. And they work for you no matter what your business size or stage of growth or industry are, because they are coaching tools to have you think about, provide a framework to think about an issue. And there are 20 areas that all businesses have to address at some point in their business life, and so there are tools and articles that are within each of those 20 areas to help move you forward. So the growth wheel is made up of 4 areas that each business has to work on. You have to have an attractive business concept. You have to attract and keep customers. You have to build a strong organization that is the foundation for implementing your services or products, and you have to make it profitable. You have to develop systems and efficiencies to make it a business that works for you. Okay, so welcome a few more other people. Let's do a couple more poll questions. Okay, so the next poll is, have you taken our webinar before? So there are now a few more people on the line. Let's see. Have you taken our Growth Wheel webinars before? Please answer. So we're almost there. About 2/3 of you have voted. Now 80% have voted. Okay, so let's show that poll. Half of you have taken before. Great, welcome back. And half of you have not taken these before, so we're glad you're with us. I hope you'll learn a lot about your hiring your next employee. Let's take the next poll. Let's find out how you heard about this webinar in the next poll. So vote early and often. Well, I don't know if you can vote often, but okay. So some of you, almost everybody has voted, not quite everybody. Okay, so some of you, let's close this poll. Most of you heard about it from our website, and some of you heard about it from our e-blast, so half and half actually, so that's great. Okay, let's move on. So we've talked about breaking the challenges down into 4 areas, and here are the 20 areas. This is just giving you a quick overview of the kinds of growth wheel areas. And in our webinar that is called Assessing Your Business, we talk about the Growth Wheel 360 screening tool, and that utilizes is a way for you to assess where you are in relation to each one of these in terms of opportunities, challenges, or competency evaluations. So it's a scoreboard where you and a business advisor can draw up a visual profile about how the business is doing and looking at your future opportunities and obstacles. The result of using Growth Wheel tools and using this assessment is a clear mind and a full overview of where to focus next. So, I want to ask you one more poll question before I get into the content. So let's have the next poll question, because we're going to be talking about the job description. So, let's find out where you are with employees. Okay. So either you don't have one and you don't want any. You have one, but you're thinking about it's time to grow. Keep voting. You have one that didn't work out so well, so you want to learn to do it better. You have one who's working out, and you're ready to do another one to hire even better. And you have more than one, and you want to do better next time. Okay, 80% of you have voted, so that's good. And all of you are attending. So one of you, at least one of you, where are you? Okay, so let's show the poll. Okay, so you can see that some of you don't have one, some of you have one, and some of you have more than one. So great. So let's take a look at our next slide, shall we? So job descriptions. You know, first let's define our terms. Well, a job description is really a series of decisions that you make about what the job should be that are communicated clearly to the employee. So we'll show you more about this in a minute. Most of what I'm sharing, again, I will tell you, are in the articles I'm sending to you. So listen and be curious and send me questions as you have them, or wait until the end of the call and I'll talk with you live as you have questions. So what does the job description include? Well, first and foremost, at the top of the list of priorities is, for making a good job description is finding the right title. Titles are important indicators of identity. And so you want it to be attractive and express what the job really entails. But it shouldn't be too lofty. It should reflect what a person actually does. The better you outline their tasks, the clearer the title will be for you. Under the function, you will list the tasks, but also how the employee can earn their own salary. In the article, we'll show you an example of a job description with a sales assistant. In addition, when we look at organizational placement, who does the job report to? That's what that means. Who are their peers, their direct reports? What are their relationships to outsiders? In larger companies, this is where an organizational chart helps. It's really not necessary in a small company where it's you, and you're adding one or you're adding your second. Still, it's necessary to communicate to new employees which assignments they need to collaborate with others and which assignments that they can expect where they can expect support from colleagues. You can do that simply by making a list of all the employees if you have more than one, and give examples of what they're responsible for. When we look at the key responsibilities, we're talking, we say a match of 9, maybe 10. 9 is usually easier to deal with. If you have more than 9, you can usually group them together under fewer headings, and that's useful for everybody to gain a better understanding of the whole and the parts. Headings do help orient the reader. And numbering and listing tasks is easier to understand than creating narrative paragraphs. So remember, if you're not clear on what the employee should be focusing on, it won't be clear to them either. So a caveat for all job descriptions is that employees have a responsibility to adjust their job description so it corresponds to reality. So again, a job description is a snapshot in time of an organic experience where you're also going to try and define the expected results, both short-term and long-term. So we'll talk a little bit about that next. Defining the activities like you just heard about is one thing. Defining the results expected is another. So activities do not equate to results. Both short and long-term results should be described. Hopefully you have a strategic plan outlining your goals and your measurable results for your company. What part of those does your employee have, you should be asking yourself. Short-term results can be simple and have to do with effective onboarding of the employee over the next few months, for example. Or you may have a specific task that needs to be done within a short time that you're asking this person to do. You have to define what success looks like for your employee, so both you and he or she knows when they are successful. Long-term results could be well, should be the points that relate how the employee can create value for the business and how they can earn the equivalent value of their salary for the business. Like a salesperson, a longer-term goal might be to create sales from 100 new persons or a 10% increase in gross margins. For a marketing person, it might be 500 new subscriptions to the electronic newsletter. For a bookkeeper, it might be savings of 500 each month of expenses that would have gone to an external bookkeeper or an accountant. So in addition to these other functions, you also need to be looking at management and decision-making limits and growth opportunities for the employee. Most business owners are very clear in their head on this one, the management and decision-making limits, but they don't communicate those ideas to employees often. So why not clarify it and put some of it in writing in the job description? So think about, what are the employees' areas of responsibility? What can they do on their own without asking their supervisor, that is you, usually, first? So what can they do on their own? Some of these you get a feel for over time, but by forcing you to think about it, it gets clearer what you're willing to delegate. In the future, I'll be doing a session on delegation. It takes some weight off your shoulders and provides the employee with more independence when you think this through and give them some room. Then you also need to think about, what reports do you want the employee to make? As you form the job description, you will get clearer about what you need the person to report on and how you want them to report on it. And if you don't, you might be worrying about what they are doing or what results they are getting. Regular reports of what you want and need will help you make more strategic decisions. About growth opportunities. Here we mean a short training plan that outlines what an employee needs to learn to complete the given tasks. It could be on-the-job training, time to read annual reports or manuals, or time to observe or interview key others and ask questions. It doesn't have to be some expensive training program, but there might be some specific training programs that you want somebody to do, and if so, then this gives you time to look at budgeting for those expenses as well. So now, think about, what is your intent or your objective? And you came onto this call because you were thinking about your next employee. So what do you want your next employee to do? Think about what value this position adds to the company. What results are expected? What's the framework for the job? What educational activities are planned? When we went through the job description parts, we addressed all of these questions, but sometimes having them in question form helps you think about it better. And then finally, what kind of person needs to fill this position? So we look first at building the job description, and then we look at the employee profile. So in summary, we've come to here. So now let's look at a framework, okay, that summarizes what I just talked about. This too is in the article I'm sending you. So if you change the words out from executive director to business owner, we've talked about expected results, title and role, key responsibilities, organizational position, growth opportunities, and authority. How much of decision-making authority do they have? So a key point, though, is that by doing a thorough job description and relating to all the points listed, the employee gets off to a good start in the job. And the expectations of the employee's managers are clear. The work done here can also be used as a tool for subsequent employee review meetings. And you can use the job description to decide on all matters affecting the employee's job and workday. Most of you will be getting ready for your first employees, for the first employee, for startup businesses. your first employee usually is one of three types. One, either an office assistant or bookkeeper to save you time so you can focus on sales, delivery, and relationship building. Two, a production or service employee in charge of producing or delivering your product. And here you're probably going to have to add that product training. Or three, a salesperson who takes over the entrepreneur's own sales work and is given tasks of cultivating new markets or selling new products. As a small business owner, you are the face of the business, so you may keep your larger accounts and ask a salesperson to develop those new markets. But you know that this is those of you who have been in business for a while, you know you can't leave the biggest accounts to a new person. You are the person trusted for that. So the question becomes, so can this employee add enough value to cover the cost of hiring them? I.e., can they create enough value to earn their salary? Who's ideal? So we're going to get into that a little bit. What's the employee profile? So I'm going to talk about the employee profile, and then I'm going to come back and we're going to talk about both the tools for building a job description and then building an employee profile in that order, because you need to have the job description first before daydreaming about who would be perfect for you in your business. So, so when we ask the employee about an employee profile, like when you worked on your market and you figured out your ideal profile of your client, now you want to think about your ideal profile of your next employee. So you want to begin to visualize the ideal candidate for this position. The next slides I show you are from the article sent again, so you can listen and observe and maybe prepare questions to ask me later. Okay, so again, these things are in your article coming, if you haven't already downloaded it. First, of course, getting ready for your next employee is you have to do some planning beyond the job description. You need to look at the salary. I would suggest that you look at salary reporting sources to see what is comparable in the marketplaces for businesses in your industry and of your size. That data is available, but you have to dig for it. But I would look at salary comparison reporting sources to find that information. You need to assess the risk of hiring. What if orders do not come in as expected? Many entrepreneurs wait until they have long or big contracts when they've convinced customers to buy more goods or order more at one time. Or that the customer is guaranteed to purchase a certain amount of the business during the coming year. If you've set up this security and know what the expenses are, and know that expenses are covered for the rest of the year, you may be more willing to make the investment in an employee. There's a great TED Talk about why hiring an employee is the last thing you want to do. And I would encourage you to listen to that. He makes the case of why you don't hire until you really have enough revenue coming in that you can't do anything but hire somebody because you can't meet demand. And to hire before that is a huge risk for the business that you might not be able to sustain over the long haul. So getting ready is a lot of planning in these kinds of areas. Then, so before recruitment, you're going to be looking at the budget, the job description, creating an employee profile, and advertising the job. And so let's move on to, now I hope you've had enough time to look at and think about this slide. So now let's think about during recruitment. Okay, now we're in the job interviewing stage and the other pieces that we do when we go through recruitment. So they're suggesting that you might want to do a personality assessment. We can't test personality because we're not mental health professionals, but we can do assessments like the MBTI, which is the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator. Or you could do something called DISC, which is a work behavior-based assessment. of preferences, so you can, and if you do it, I would suggest you do it for yourself as well, so you can see if this person brings complementariness to your own personality profile or preferences. Of course, you'll be evaluating candidates, and you'll be in contract negotiation. So clearly, you want to prepare good questions. So we know that you should get a book on job interviewing if you haven't done this already. There's a lot of information out there about asking good questions. So let me talk a little bit about what that means. When you have good questions, they are usually not yes or no questions, and for reviewing and for checking out next employees, it's best to ask questions that ask the recruit about past behavior, because past behavior is the best predictor for future behavior. So rather than asking a question like, how would you, you're going to be starting the questions with something like, how have you done something like this in the past? Give me a description of how you handled X, Y, or Z in the past. And then if you have some things that you're expecting them to do, like if you want them to be able to utilize Microsoft Office Suite, you might want to have them do tests in a database, Excel, Word, PowerPoint if that's important to you. Anyway, have them do a test of using those tools to see if they really can do what they say they would do. You don't have to do fancy contracts. You can look at standard contracts and adapt them for your own. So the most dangerous and common error that new hires, that employees make with new hires is to not check the applications and particularly their qualifications. So make it your business to check references. Find out if people really graduated where they said. Find out if they really worked where they said. And also have more than one person meet and evaluate the applicant, giving relevant, and of course, like I said, give the relevant test. So what if there's only you, and you? Who else is going to interview them? If you have a colleague that knows your business well, if you have somebody on your board of advisors that knows your business well, have them sit in and on an interview or interview separately. So even if you're the only employee for your business, you can have another person evaluate this person as well and give you feedback. And I think that's really important. You want the person to be right for the job. So now let's look at the post stuff. Once you've made the contract and made the deal, then you want to make some very specific work plans and being with the employee, growth plans, and an articulation of how the employee will be reviewed. So this is pretty self-explanatory. It's important that you have performance reviews. Many organizations don't, and they don't do nearly as well. Many organizations do, and they do better. So build time in. Don't think that that's not important. For one thing, if an employee is not reviewed on a regular basis, they begin to resent that, and it's a good way to lose people to better paying and better to organizations that treat them better. Your employees are a big investment in time and money, and so you want to reap the best investments. So build in time for that performance review. Okay, so here's what I've just, here's something that I've been talking about in terms of the recruitment process. What I just went through kind of covers all of these parts. So let me just, we've talked a little bit in each one of those slides that I have, the last 3 slides about these. So I'm just going to highlight and summarize and show the 12 tasks relating to recruitment and management of employees. this is also in your article. So before the recruitment even begins, the 4 tasks in summary are to complete are making an employee budget that contains a list of the costs and the benefits related to that employee, making the job description, and create a profile, that's the employee profile we were talking about, of the wanted employee, and then, of course, job advertising. The tasks during the recruitment itself are then the interviews, the personality tests, evaluating candidates, and formalizing a final contract. And then after recruitment, there are still various tasks to do, like the introduction to the business processes and other staff, conducting the staff development interviews, and any training that the person needs. The key point in this framework is that successful recruitment demands thorough preparation of all the different tasks in the recruitment process. But once you create this, you've created a template, if you will, and a checklist. So the next time, the whole process will be a lot easier. And if this is not done, then the recruitment of each new employee is likely to become even more complex and more challenging each time, and then you'll not want to do it, and it'll be negatively reinforcement to do the work. So do the work up front so that it makes your future work less painful. Okay, I'm ready to take another poll. So this poll, it has to do with your job descriptions, and we're getting ready to talk about the tools. So let's look at where you are with job descriptions. Either you're an old hand, let's take some voting. You're an old hand, or you've never done it, or maybe you did it but you didn't do it very well and you didn't get what you wanted, or you did a great one but the person didn't think so, or I just need to learn how to do this and quit bugging me, Meg. So 60% of you are voted. Let's hear from the rest of you. Okay, a couple more votes, please. I know you're viewing. There we go. There we go. Somebody's an old hand at this. You should be doing this seminar. Okay, let's close the poll and see that half of you have never built one before, and one did, or a couple did, but they didn't get what they wanted from it. So you're going to learn and do better. So let's go on to the next page. So as I talk about the growth wheel tools, I want you to notice that on each one there'll be a title and benefit and an intention, a description of the process to use the tool, and suggestions for next step, and space for you to focus your ideas and to work through it. So here's the first tool. So notice on this tool that here's the job title, and here's what's in it for you to build a better job description. And here's some of the intent of this worksheet to help walk you through. And what you're going to do in the process is, okay, start by getting an overview of the different elements of the job description. So you may have jotted down, while we were talking earlier, about a bunch of the tasks you'd like someone to take over for you, or for the next employee to take over wherever they are in the system. So these are some ways to get at that. So notice we're going to give this a job title, but maybe you're not ready to do that yet, because maybe that articulation hasn't emerged from your description yet. So let's look at the description. So first you're going to, these sentence stems may help you. Your job in the company is to work with. It also entails, and along with the rest of the team, you're part of creating a company that. So this is kind of like the big picture. This is inviting you onto my team. This is why I need you and what you're joining. That's what this really tells me. And specifically, the tasks that you've been jotting down, you're going to say, well, these are the areas of responsibilities. And related to that, I want you to make some reports. Now, when you make reports, you can choose to have oral reports. You could choose to have electronic reports. You know, it's really up to you. And so as I built these growth wheel webinars, one of the things that I wanted to be able to report to my superiors about the success of the growth wheel tools is how many people are registering, how many people are showing up, and now that we're charging for these workshops, how much are we generating? When we ask the poll questions, that's a form of us being able to have data that tells us, you know, the kinds of folks that showed up and the kinds of issues that they're addressing and how this workshop is helping. So that's what, you know, I wanted to do for my boss. So from your point of view, as the business owner or the person who's going to be developing the job description, you're thinking about what do we need to keep the overall organization on task, informed, and how over time are we going to prove the value of this position to the company. So that's part of what this is telling you. Then if the person's going to have external relationships with customers or suppliers or partners or others, what of that? What are you really looking for the person to do? And then if we look at the name of the, you know, that, don't worry about that yet because that's going to be the person you hire. But look at this next section, the organizational placement internal relations. So this is where you're going to articulate who's this person going to report to or have most of their contact with, who's going to help you with prioritizing when there are organizational client conflicts, and who else are they going to be asked to coordinate or be a part of a team with. In the goals section, you're going to be articulating in the long run, short run, and if it makes sense, in a medium run, what are they going to be responsible for accomplishing? This is getting at your results section that we talked about, having expected long and short-term results. The development opportunities is how are you helping to plan for growth for this person? Again, this does not have to be a huge deal at the beginning. This can be specific on the job training, but it's not just, oh, just hang out and listen and learn. That is not a development opportunity. That is a cop-out. So think specifically about what kind of on-the-job training, for example, do they need. If it's a bookkeeper and they're trained in Quicken but not QuickBooks, and you have QuickBooks but you have decided this person's a great fit for us, are you willing to send them to QuickBooks training? This will help you determine what you really need for the job. All of this helps you sharpen your thinking throughout. And finally, what do you really think that they can be doing when they first start, besides getting acclimated to the space? So take a look at thinking about, like, what should this be doing? Again, this does not have to be hard. It could be, I want you to sit down and have conversations with everybody in the office or in the company. We have 2 people off-site. I want you to meet with them and find out what they do, find out how they perceive that this role is going to fit with what they're doing, for example. There might be some other pressing things that must be done within a certain time period early on, and that would go there too. So I'm going to stop for a moment and just look and see if I have any questions from any of you. Not yet. Okay. All right. So that's the job description. And again, this is emailed to you as a PDF file, so you can download it and work with it. Okay. Not seeing any other questions, and I'm going to look and see if any hands are raised. Nope. Okay. Then let's go on to our other worksheet, which is the employee profile. So once you've developed your job description, which we hopefully made a case for throughout this. The next thing is to figure out your employee profile. So again, the idea here is to describe the ideal profile for the next employee. And the purpose of that is the more you articulate who would be the best kind of fit for this person, the more you increase the likelihood of finding the right person for the job. You'll recognize them. It's kind of like when you start talking about red cars, and then you start seeing red cars everywhere. So if you clearly articulate what you want, you're more likely to see the person or hear the person when they show up, either in your interviews or your networking or in the files that are sent to you electronically. So again, the first and foremost thing is to have put that title on that job description and who they will refer to or report to or most interact with in the business goes here. So when you're looking at this, like what knowledge and skills do they need first and foremost? And that might be, say they're really good at, they're really organized, or say they're really very much have great tact and people skills. They also may need professional skills within their area, either like the bookkeeping skills or professional sales training, and they know about the job or the work. What kind of mindset should they have? We're talking more about a basic work ethic. I want you to be thinking about when what do you want them, like maybe the mindset is they have to be an independent producer, and that's, and they have to be kind. Maybe the mindset is I really need a team player, and I need somebody who gets that we have to be out and among the people in order to grow this business. I don't know what your issues are. That's what this tool is so great for, is if you build this the way you need it. So you want to also look at, what career do they have so far? What was their last job? Their last 3 jobs. What are they doing today? What did they do before and before that? What's their education pedigree? What do they hope to be doing next year and 2 years besides working for you? What do they see as personal growth for themselves? Remember, we all have 5 or 6 careers in us over the course of our lifetime. That's not jobs, that's careers. So be thinking about, what else do you want to put into that ideal employee profile? So once you build this, and again, think about the words and images that come to mind, and use the profile then to help write the job advertisement, because with the job description, you can say we're looking for somebody who, and you've all seen those job descriptions, and use it for inspirations for questions for the job interview. So that's why you're doing this employee profile, so you'll know her or him when you see him. Okay. All right, I see I have a question. Katie. So, Katie says, do you have suggestions for what the probationary period could look like? How long, evaluation, and expectations? That is an awesome question, Katie. You get a major gold star for that question. Yes, I do think a probationary period is often 3 to 6 months, depending on the risks you're asking the employee to take, and the risks to the organization if they fail. So if they need a little bit longer period to really get to the level of performance, you should be thinking about that. You should know what the sort of the professional ramp-up time would be for a position like this. Again, do the market research around that. And I would say build an informal review after a couple weeks. Have another informal review about, like, how's it going? What do you think's working well for you here? What's not working so well for you here? What resources are missing for you to do your job? And of course, catching people doing right is one of the key skills of any manager. because we get more when we reinforce the positive. So, having somebody, or training the people in your environment to catch people doing things right is very important, and speaking to that. That doesn't mean you ignore and don't correct what's wrong, but you focus also on what's right. And in our society, we tend to ignore that. So 3 to 6 months, that builds in 3 months you should have a formal probationary evaluation, and share review the job description before you go into that, and determine if it was right for this person, or if it needed to be modified, and how well is this person meeting it. And usually when you have those evaluation periods, you use the sandwich approach, which is say something positive, say something that has to do with corrections, say something positive. So that formula works beautifully in providing feedback to employees. So I hope that answered that question pretty well. Okay, and then we have something from, I'm trying to see who it's from here, sorry, Tammy, who says, great point, also being realistic in your expectations. Remember what it's like to be an employee. Oh yes, very good remark, Tammy. And I think it's vital to be positive along the way. Yes, thank you. Okay, so let's see if there's something else going on over here. Okay, so let's move on. Again, the only dumb questions are the ones you don't ask, okay? So let's look at what your action steps should be after this webinar. First, work through these tools, the job description and the employee profile on your own, and read so that you can apply the articles to your thinking as you build out these tools. Then define what type of employee you should hire next through that job descriptions. And make a job description that's truly ready for the day that you are ready to hire, to post the job, I should say. Then adjust the job description as you get clear about what you need and want this person to do to add value. So you're going to learn a lot in the interviewing process, so use that. This is the reason why when you're on the employee side and organizations take longer to build what they to fill a position, it's because they are learning and thinking about what they really want. And sometimes they pull the job because they realize that's not really what we're going to do. We're going to put a hold on that job. And it's not because you weren't perfect, because you're all perfect, but it was because they're learning. So you're going to learn as you build, as you talk about this job description, and you talk with potential people, and maybe you talk in your network as you try to let people know what you want, and you're going to have this bright bulb idea that you go, oh, duh, how come I did not think of that? And you're going to want to add that to the position. So that's one of the reasons that it takes longer to fill positions sometimes, because you learn better about what you want and need. And sometimes you find out that it may be too costly and too soon to add that person, because you can't guarantee that person to have an ongoing job. And if you find that out, hopefully you figured that out before you made the job offer. But if you have to make a job and then you have to let the person go because you haven't assessed well whether the organization can sustain that job, that's unfortunate. So you want to look at, which leads me to that next point, which is you want to calculate the needed results in order for the new employee to create profit. What that means is that, especially in little bitty companies, you have to figure out what value is this person adding for me, how are they saving money, and how are they generating money to contribute to the business and grow the business. And then finally, I'd say make detailed job descriptions for the next 2 to 3 years, 2 to 3 employees that you want to hire in the future. That's probably going to come from this whole process anyway. So next steps in general. make an appointment to see me or Cynthia Johnson, your Certified Growth Wheel Advisors if you're here in the Chicago area. There are Growth Wheel certified advisors in many places and throughout over 30 states in the U.S. So if you're outside, to find your closest Small Business Development Center, go to the SBA.gov and type in your state, and you'll see they're listed by city where they are. And so you can see which ones are closest to you. And consider coming to our in-person Growth Wheel Tools Clinic that we hold once a quarter. That'll be in June, towards the end of June here. And that's where, if you've worked with some of your tools and you want to come in and at that time, we will have some Growth Wheel advisors here to help you. And so schedule an appointment with an SBDC advisor near you. And you can, with that advisor, you can determine which additional tools you might want to work through to break through the next level of planning on the issues you have prioritized. And also you can see other varieties of tools you might work with at growthwheel.com. And how do you set up an appointment? Sessions are free at all the SBDCs. That means your tax dollars at work. You can meet in person or by phone. You'll be expected to complete a Small Business Development Center intake form, and you can expect to spend about 50 minutes or so on the job. Okay. And here at the Women's Business Development Center, to make an appointment, you call this number, extension 100. And again, if you're established 3 years or more, you can ask to meet with Cynthia Johnson or Joy Taylor. If you're a pre-startup to maybe 3 years of business, you can let the scheduler know that you attended this webinar, and she'll hook you up with me or Deborah Miner Harvey or Nicole Mandeville. So before I go further, I'm going to ask you some questions, but poll questions, but I'm also going to look and see if there's any other questions that are on the list of questions. Yes, there's another question here. What about other benefits, insurance, retirements, and funds? Should I figure that out before posting the job? Great question, Katie. Yes, you should. You definitely should. So I would talk to an insurance agent and maybe a wealth advisor. You can talk to Paychex. They know about retirement funds as well. Yes, you absolutely should figure out posting the job. You have to decide whether you can afford other benefits or when you might be able to afford those benefits, because that matters to many employees. And so if you can't provide it, they might be looking somewhere else. So you need to see if you can actually afford that. That was a great question. Let me see if there's other questions. Okay. So let's ask you, now my turn to ask you a few more questions. So we're going to go to our poll questions again, because you've been great about answering them. So I want to find out, I think the next one is, how long have you been in business? So let's see what the poll question is. The poll is open. Yeah, so quickly tell me how long you've been in business. Only 40% no, now 60% have voted. Let's have a few more voters in there. Okay. We have another voter outlier out there. Okay, let's close the polls. Good to see that you're already in business or you're established more than 3 years. That's really where our Growth Wheel tools are most valuable. So do come in and speak to an advisor to help you with those. Let's look at the next poll. Just have a couple more poll questions. So now I want to find out, have you worked with us before, or another SBDC, or maybe an out-of-state SBDC? Great. So we have one outlier, or a couple outliers. Let's close the poll. Most of you have worked with us. Thanks. That's great. Keep working with us. We'd love to see you again. And somebody else is working with another SBDC. That's great. So, so now let me go on to the, I'm here, so I'll leave this here. If you have any questions, then I want to look at more questions too, but I have two more polls that I want, because I'm just curious about you. So the next poll, if you'll just be so kind of humoring me for a couple more minutes, are you, based on this webinar, how likely are you to do something different? Are you going to use the tool? Are you going to make an appointment? Are you going to attend a future webinar? Can you tell me? Okay, let's close the poll. So, as you can see, many of you are doing all of the above or some of the above. Yay, wahoo, I'm glad. One more poll, and this again is for our funders to see who some of our participants are in terms of certain things. Are you a veteran? Are you already in child care or opening a child care business? Are you an established business in the Aurora area? This is your last poll question. Don't leave me hanging. Okay, so none of the above for all of you. Thank you. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to the questions things to see if anybody else has asked questions. No, I don't have any more handwritten questions, but let's see if any of you have raised your hand and would like to ask a question live. So if you see the place to ask a question, and you can put your hand up, that would be fine. Well, this was a pretty robust webinar. I've done a lot of talking. I hope I haven't bothered you, bored you with a lot of these things. So I hope that this has been useful, that we've answered your questions, and you know this isn't the end of the opportunity for you to meet with us. So, and thanks, Tammy, for the kind words. So I look forward, our next webinar will be on Wednesday, April 29th, and that's where we're going to be looking at raising your prices through raising value. So that should be a really interesting webinar, and I hope some of you will join us. And those of you who did not take our introductory webinar, look for them in our events. I'm going to look really quickly on my list of events and see if I can tell you when the next one is. I don't have it handy, but it is in early middle May. So I hope you'll join us for that. Thanks so much, everybody. Goodbye.